Hello everyone and welcome to Good Night Chabad Youth. Today we are going to read a book which has a very important lesson, and it's a book that I really think is important for everyone to hear, because we'll see as the story progresses how very often a similar story could happen in our lives, and unfortunately, it can really do really bad damage to someone and can really hurt people if it's something like this happens. So let's look inside. It is called Manny's a Thief. We've got here Manny, and we've got, very sadly, it looks like people that are pointing at Manny. Let's try to understand what is going on in this story. Manny's a thief. And we can see people whispering. Have you ever seen people whispering about other people? Maybe saying unkind things? It would be very hurtful and not Avos Yisrael at all. Okay, let's start reading this book. In the middle of a busy city, across from the green park where the oak tree stood, was a large apartment building. It was tall and narrow and had 15 stories. A very tall apartment building. Lots of people lived in it. There were tall people and short people, fat people and skinny people, young and old. The people were all very friendly with each other. Everyone liked everybody, and everybody talked with everybody. But sometimes the people got a little too friendly and wanted to know a little too much about everybody else. The people who lived in this building were what you might call nosy. Sometimes they listened and repeated things that they should not have listened to and should not have repeated. That's a very important lesson, that we shouldn't listen to what is not our business and then repeat it to others. The story is beginning. One day, Mrs. Golden and her grandson David were climbing the stairs to their 4th floor apartment. Mrs. Golden never took the elevator. She said she liked the exercise. They stopped to catch the breath at the top of the 3rd flight. They were carrying bags of groceries, so the trip was a bit tiring. They've got lots of groceries and they're walking up all the flight. They were about to continue their journey up the next flight of stairs when Mrs. Golden thought she heard a voice coming from one of the apartments. She started to listen more closely. But she really should have been minding her own business. A muffled voice came from the hallway. Mrs. Mrs. Golden ears perked up. What did they say? Who said that? That was nothing, Grandma. Come on, said David as he started up the steps. No, I heard something. Mrs. Golden put her ear up to the door of the apartment that was right next to the stairway. All the doors had big numbers written on it. This door had the number 31C. Now she could hear somewhat clearer. A rough voice was speaking. Manny's a thief! Manny's a thief! Mrs. Golden jumped back. Manny's a thief? That's awful, thought Mrs. Golden out loud. Why, that bad man. Did you hear that, David? I can't believe it. I think you misunderstood, Grandma, said David. And there's her looking in and putting her ear to the door to listen what's going on inside the house. And now already, Mrs. Golden is thinking of all these ideas about what Manny is stealing when she wasn't even meant to be listening, and she might have misunderstood to what she heard. But she's already starting to think about what she heard. I heard it with my own ears. Manny's a thief, Mrs. Golden was shocked. But which Manny's a thief? Mrs. Golden knew lots of Mannys. There's Manny who works at the bank on 35th Street. There's Mr. Manny who teaches in school a few blocks away. A school teacher, a thief? How could that be? David kept tugging at his grandmother's side. Grandma, I think you misunderstood. But it was no use. Mrs. Golden was lost in her thoughts to think about which Manny was the thief. Just then, Mrs. Overlander from the 5th floor came down the stairs. Mrs. Overlander didn't take the elevator either. She had motion sickness and avoided moving objects completely. Now she's coming down the stairs. Psst. Mrs. Overlander, whispered Mrs. Golden, have I got news for you? We were on our way upstairs, minding our own business, when I happened to overhear there's a terrible thief running loose around here. His name is Manny. Such a thief this Manny is. If I were you, I would lock my doors. Grandma, David tried to interrupt, but she immediately cut him off. Manny's a thief? Mrs. Overlander shivered. Now, Mrs. Overlander only knew one Manny, the fix-it man who lived down in the basement, and she never trusted him in the first place. He had beady eyes, she thought. I suspected all along, said Mrs. Overlander, and she scurried upstairs to make sure that she quickly locked her doors. Oh my gosh, look at how this Lashon Hara is changing. The story is completely changing, and only David knows that it's wrong. Everyone else is forgetting. As Mr. Overlander reached her apartment door, she ran into Alex Morton, who was a doctor who still sometimes went to visit his patients. Excuse me, Dr. Morton, Mrs. Overlander said, but I thought you better know. Manny, the fix-it man, the man who lives in the basement, is a dangerous thief. He's a menace, and you should avoid him and lock your doors. Dr. Morton was surprised. Manny, the fix-it man? Well, come to think of it, a few things have been missing from my house. Maybe Manny took them. Maybe he's the one who took my wife's ring that we can't find. Thanks for the information. I'm going to go to the 7th floor and tell Mrs. Kressler. She's ill, and I'll make sure to tell her not to ever call on Manny. Oh no, the rumour is going around and everyone is spreading the awful Lashon Hara that isn't even true. Mrs. Overlander knocked on a few more neighbours' doors, spreading the word that Manny the fix-it man was a terrible jewel thief. He couldn't be trusted. Hide your gold and your silver and your crystals. There's a thief amongst us. Well, since everyone in the building talked with everyone else, within no time at all, the word had spread like wildfire. Wherever you went, crowds were gathered. They started making up the most awful stories about Manny. I heard that he's always been a thief. I heard terrible stories about him. Everyone's whispering. And now they're starting more stories. We should never trust him. People started talking about it day and night in every single corner of the apartment building. Manny, the fix-it man, turned one of his corners as he was making his rounds around the building to fix everything. Everyone stopped when Manny came. Everyone stared at him. He said hello, but everyone just stared and no one answered. Then Manny turned another corner. The few people who were gathered there ran to their rooms. Manny said, "What's the matter with everyone? Why is everyone running away from me?" Poor Manny, he doesn't know what everyone is saying about him. Manny then knocked on Mrs. Julio's door at 37J. It was time to fix her air filter. Mrs. Julio came to the door, but when she saw who it is, she said, "Thief! You're not coming into my apartment. My son will change the filter from now on." And she slammed the door in poor Manny's face. Poor Manny, this is so terrible for him. Manny was left standing in the hallway all alone. Why did she call me a thief, Manny wondered. I'm not a thief. I never stole anything. No wonder everyone's been acting so strangely around me. They think that I'm a thief. What could I have done to make them think that? He felt so terrible. His feelings were hurt. He walked away from Mrs. Julio's door with his head down. I'm ruined, he thought. No one's going to trust me to fix anything. How will I make a living? I'm ruined. Poor Manny, just because everyone was spreading rumours about him that weren't even true and talking losh and horror, all of a sudden he hasn't got his job anymore and it wasn't even true. And that's how scary it is. One person can say something about someone that isn't true, or maybe they think they heard something, or they think someone told them something, and all of a sudden everyone will be talking losh and horror, which is not a mitzvah at all. Things are getting worse. Manny turned another corner and saw another group murmuring amongst themselves and snickering. They heard them say, Manny did this and Manny did that. When Manny heard this, he was about to cry. They're talking about me. I can tell they're spreading lies. So Manny marched right up to the group and he said, why do you think I'm a thief? I'm not a thief. Who told you I'm a thief? Everyone became silent and stared at Manny. Then everyone started to point a finger at everyone else. Well, he told me. Well, I heard it from Simon. Well, Miriam told me. Well, I heard it from... At this point, David stepped forward. He had been listening to the entire conversation from around the corner. And he said, I don't think you're a thief, Manny. David was the only one who was standing up for what was right. He was the only one that realized that it was all not true and everyone was just believing. They weren't even trying to find out if it was the truth. They were just believing everything that everyone else had told them. David smiled and said, if everyone will follow me, I think I can solve everything. So everyone followed David. They all paraded down the hallway. As the people heard the excitement, they all came out of their apartments one by one and joined the group. When they reached the end of the hallway, David went up and knocked on the door that had 31C in large print. And have a look. Even though David's such a young boy, because he knows what's right, everyone's following him because everyone knows when it's the truth, we have to listen. And now David is coming back to the place where it all started, 31C. And David is going to see what was really happening inside that apartment. What were they really saying? Were they really saying Manny's a thief? And even if they were, who knows what Manny they were talking about? Someone just decided it was Manny from the basement. A little boy answered and was surprised to see so many people staring at him. But then he saw his friend David and he gave a big grin. Go put on your favourite hat, David told the little boy. And the little boy vanished. He's going to put on his favourite hat. Now, David is so smart. He knows exactly what to do. He knows how to solve the mystery. Everyone was peeking into the palm and looking around. Hanging from the ceiling was a bird cage. A colourful parrot sat perched up high. Quick as a flash, the little boy returned. He was now wearing his red fireman hat. The hat had Chief written on it in tall white letters. Everyone, this is my new friend, Manny Lamb. He moved in 2 weeks ago. He's going to be a fire chief when he grows up. As those words came out of David's mouth, the bird that was in the cage began to call. Manny's a chief! Manny's a chief! And that's Manny's pet parrot, Trixie. David finished. Everyone was quiet. Manny's a chief, Trixie said. That was Manny's bird that loved to say Manny's a chief. A different Manny and not a thief, a chief. Because we can see he's wearing his fireman chief hat. Everyone turned to Manny the Fix-It Man. Then everyone started apologising all at once. We're so sorry. We didn't mean to hurt you. Please forgive us. It was a misunderstanding. Manny the Fix-It Man, who was such a lovely man, he accepted everyone's apology. After all, it was a misunderstanding. Manny wasn't a thief. Manny was a chief. And have a look, everyone's gathered around Manny. And Manny's smiling again because now everyone realises he's not a thief. This would never have happened if everyone would have stopped listening and repeating things when they should have been minding their own business, said David. David's the youngest, but he knows the truth. Everyone agreed. Spreading rumours is very bad and they should never do it again. A few weeks later, when Mrs. Golden was catching her breath at the top of the 3rd flight, she thought she heard someone say, Manny's a crook. She looked around, but she didn't see anyone. She thought for a moment and wondered. And then she shook her head and continued up the stairs. And look at the picture. Manny has now become a cook. But Baruch Hashem, Mrs. Golden learned her lesson and didn't go spreading any rumours about Manny being a crook. I hope everyone enjoyed the story and I hope that you have understood the special message that we must be so careful not to spread Lashon Hara about others. And even if we think we heard something, we don't have to tell anyone else about it. Because Lashon Hara can really hurt someone and can make someone so sad and can really hurt their feelings. So let's all try to be really careful to only speak positively about one another. And if someone tells us something not nice about someone, we say, I don't want to hear, I don't want to know, because maybe it's not even true. And even if it is, we don't want to hear not nice things about others, because that is going to be the way that we're going to bring Mashiach.